Hi, welcome to SchizophrenicReads. I'm Nathan Shirk and I live with schizophrenia. I'm a mental health advocate, public speaker, and I'm on the executive board of a mental health nonprofit. For my first video, I'm going to be doing the Booktube Newbie Tag, and I'm going to be answering some questions about why I like reading and what this channel is going to be all about. Question 1 is, why did I start this channel? I think I started this channel because living with schizophrenia, I see a lot of stigma in my life, and a lot of stigma that's placed on myself by myself, and a lot of stigma that I get from other people. And people with schizophrenia often live with these kind of things that we're told that about ourselves, that like we can't be smart or well-spoken or happy or so many different things. And I think YouTube is a way for me to show that those stigmas don't really line up with what my life is or who I am or what I like doing in life. And so I think I started this channel as kind of a way to like correct a lot of that thinking and to showcase, what I'm really passionate about. And I'm really passionate about mental health, and so there's gonna be a lot of stuff on this channel about mental health, but I'm really passionate about books and learning. And so kind of bringing those two together is a great way for me to show that the stigma is so fake and it's such nonsense, but why I chose to do this on Booktube and why I chose to do this mental health stuff through the lens of books is because, one, I really like it and I'm really passionate about it, but two, I also think Booktube, like the community in general, is a community that just like loves learning and loves, getting into stories and getting into new information. And so coming to Booktube is kind of, it brings all of that together for me. It brings together like wanting to showcase that I'm not some stereotype, and it lets me explore different things with people that I think I really hope and I really trust that they're going to be really supportive of, learning new things along with me and being excited for, the stories and the lessons, that we can learn from, the books that I read, and then also the things that I talk about with my own life. Question 2, what's a fun and unique thing I can bring to Booktube? Well, I think bringing my schizophrenia diagnosis might not be exactly fun, but I think it definitely is unique. And I think my perspective as a college-educated schizophrenic is something that I don't think Booktube has. At least I've never seen anyone with that kind of a channel. And I think my unique perspective of both my love for nonfiction and having an education and being schizophrenic is all going to kind of compile into, a really good version of what you're going to see from me, and then kind of my interpretations on a lot of different things. Question 3 is, what am I most excited for? I think for me, it's just finding a new audience, finding new people to talk about books with. I think in like my practical, like daily life, finding people to talk about books can be a little exhausting because my friends just get tired of that conversation. But I think on Booktube, I'm going to have a really great time talking to people about all the books that I love. And talking about books specifically that I love is, I guess, somewhat different because I think a lot of Booktube is about fiction and classics. And for me, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff that's nonfiction, a lot of modern stuff, but then I'm going to be going back and doing some older history books, some older feminist writings, and really delving into like topics like disability and stuff. And I don't think a lot of those topics are super covered on Booktube. Question 4 is, why do I love reading? I think for me, reading is just something I've built into my life within the last couple years. It's a way for me to kind of like regulate my health. It gives me something active to do with my mind, but also gives me downtime. So a lot of the time when I'm reading, I need like pretty much complete silence. And so for me, it's a really restorative place for me to be, is to just sit down with a book. And so it kind of helps keep my chaotic mind just at balance a little bit. So learning new things and getting to use my mind in unique ways. But also, I think it's almost like a therapy to me, just being able to focus on different things that I'm learning without necessarily feeling like I'm wasting time. Like I might feel if I'm just watching YouTube or I'm just watching Netflix or something like that. So reading, I think, is just a healthy habit, and I think that's really why I'm reading, is just to keep myself as healthy as possible. Question 5 is, what book or series got me into reading? I think the first thing I ever really remember falling in love with as far as reading goes was the Magic Tree House series. These are just really fun little kid stories about this magic tree house that transports you to different times in like world history. And so they would go off to like ancient Rome and ancient Egypt. Being a little kid that loved history, it was a really good, fun stories. After that, I think probably in high school, the first book that I ever really fell in love with, like as a teenager, was The Lovely Bones. And I actually got that recommended to me by this girl that I had a crush on in bio lab. And she told me that it was her favorite book, and so I like immediately went out and bought the book and really fell in love with it. And I think I fell in love with it because it was like a darker, more adult-based story, and that was, more the reading that I really liked. And then in college, I fell in love with a lot of different history books, and I don't remember a lot of those titles because it's been a long time and those aren't really books that I've kept around. But I remember falling in love with the research. A lot of like these really dry history books were something that I just absolutely loved consuming, and so I think those history books meant a lot to me. And then I think a couple years ago I read Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harrari, and that was like this first book that was like really well written and really well researched, and it was all about history, and I knew most of the stuff that he covered, but it was just such an interesting look at history but also the future. And so it was something like that I wasn't doing really as research, but I could just really think about, and I really fell in love with that. And then last year I read a collection of essays by Hanif Abdurraqib, and I've never seen someone write so beautifully about music and about culture. And for me, that was probably the book that's made reading so fun, and it just kept me looking for the next book like that. Question 6 is, who are some of my favorite booktubers? Two of the booktubers that stand out to me the most because we have the most like reading habits in common are probably abookolive and spinterslibrary. Aside from them, I really like emmabooks and sarawithoutanh and ohshereads. I think they put out just a lot of really good content, and I just love like their personality and how they talk about books, and they're really passionate. I've also been following along with the nonfiction Booktube prize. A lot of those reviewers are people that are reading nonfiction, and so I've been following a lot of their reviews. I don't know all their names right now, but I've been watching most of their videos. Question 7 is, what's the hardest challenge for me to overcome starting this Booktube channel? I think for me it's just functioning. I mean, that's something I struggle with like in all of my life. And so starting a new thing, starting a Booktube channel, is really gonna stretch me a little bit in how I function and how I like schedule myself and the ways that I like process different stresses. But it's also a really exciting thing for me because it's building something new, and it's doing a new schedule and getting to do something that I've been wanting to do and I'm really passionate about. And so I mean, the challenge is just going to be the thing that challenges me in my daily life and everything. Just functioning in general is something that I always have to worry about, whether it's something I'm really comfortable with or whether it's something that is brand new to me. Like, I'm always focused on my mental health and making sure that I'm doing as best as I can in that moment. And so doing Booktube is just going to be kind of the same, but new in a lot of different ways. Question 8 is, when did I start reading? I think I started reading just like everyone else, like as a kid, and I read a lot in high school. But when I really started reading in like a whole different way was when I went off to college and doing research projects where I really got to like delve into topics and stuff. That's where like my love for nonfiction really came out of. Studying history was just a really unique way for me to like throw myself into a lot of different topics and a lot of different eras of thought. And so covering books on so many different topics and reading them all at once and back and forth, that was really like when I guess the reading that I do now started. But I took a long time off of reading. Actually, because of poor medication and bad therapy, I wasn't doing well for a really long time. And so I think when I started reading is almost like a year ago. That's when I got back into reading. That's when I refound my passion for nonfiction. It's when I refound, actually just my passion for reading in general. Like, I went years without reading a book, and I finally, because of new therapy and new medication, I got back on track with reading. And I've just been slowly building it into my life since then, and now it's just a daily part of my life, and I couldn't be happier. Question 9 is, where do I like reading? I like reading on my couch in the mornings. I normally start with a cup of coffee, or mostly a pot of coffee every morning, and I just start my morning every day just reading and enjoying some coffee and enjoying some quiet time. Aside from that, I really like doing audiobooks while I'm traveling, and I also do audiobooks while I'm walking. And so for me, it's just a great way to like get out of the house and get like my mind, focused on something else for a while. And so audiobooks kind of when I'm out and about, but then I really love doing like physical reading when I'm at home. Question 10 is, what do I like reading? I like reading a ton of different stuff within the nonfiction category. I like history and philosophy, science, math, anything that I can learn about is a really great thing. I think probably my favorite stuff though is essays and memoirs. I think those are just a really interesting way to get a viewpoint on something pretty specific oftentimes. A lot of people like in memoirs write about trauma, and so for me, like learning about trauma and learning like how someone coped with, their life or a certain circumstance is probably something I try to like emulate within myself. I try to take like the lessons that, you know, they learn throughout their story, and I try to like think about them in terms of my life. And so reading about anything that, you know, can inform my representation of how I view the world, or anything that I can learn that like sparks new interests, or anything that I can take in that just lets me see the world in a different way. That's always the stuff that I like reading the most. That's the end of the questions, but there's something I really wanted to talk about, was that my time on Booktube, I think, is going to be a lot about mental health. It's not going to be exclusively mental health stuff, but I really want to read books that are from stories of people dealing with mental illness, are about the disability history of the US and of other countries. And I want to highlight some of the stories that I've lived with. And I think it's going to be a really fun way for me to like not pick the topics that I'm going to be covering about my own mental health. So I'm only really going to talk about my mental health when it's something that I really saw in another book. And so getting to read book after book, and there's going to be times when I really want to talk about something that has to do with my own health or my history or stuff like that. I think if you want to learn more about schizophrenia, I'm sure at some point I'm going to do maybe a Q&A video where I'll talk specifically about, you know, the questions that people have for me about schizophrenia, and maybe a little bit more on like my reading habits and how those relate. But if you want to learn more about schizophrenia specifically, my friends Lauren and Rob, they run the YouTube channel Living Well with Schizophrenia, and I think they do a really great job at like covering specific topics within schizophrenia and like how it impacts, you know, her life and how she lives. And I think that's a great resource that you should check out if you want to learn more specifically about schizophrenia. But like for me, we're going to be talking about schizophrenia a lot, and we're going to be talking about mental health and depression and my time in and out of, you know, medication and mental hospitals and those types of things. But if you want to learn more immediately, you can check out Lauren's YouTube page, or you can check out my Instagram where I talk about that stuff pretty openly. If you want to learn more about schizophrenia, I'm going to link Lauren and Rob's YouTube channel. You can also find me on Instagram. I love answering questions about this type of stuff, or just talking to people about mental health. If you want to subscribe to my channel and find out what I'm going to be reviewing in the future, you can do that. And also follow my SchizophrenicReads Instagram page, where I'll be giving kind of a little preview of some of the books that I'm going to be reading. Thanks for watching. If you could, leave a comment down below about your favorite book on mental health. It doesn't have to be about schizophrenia, and it can be fiction or nonfiction, whatever you like. And I just really love to know what people like reading on the topic.